Hello and welcome back to the OTB channel. Now, some of you may already be aware of the Hackman Linux distribution made by Ben Fitzpatrick and Matthew Moore. It's based on Arch, and its goal is to help bring new users to Arch by giving it an easy installer and a whole range of features. Well, Ben contacted me about a week or so ago and told me that he had respun the distro, only this time he was making it a Unity respin. So let's see what it's like. So Hackman, based essentially on Ubuntu 18.04, and I think it's quite a good choice, that, because Arch doesn't suit everyone, and yeah, it might well be a good distro to have a look at. I haven't tried the original Hackman, but it seems to get quite positive reviews at the videos on the videos that I've looked at, so I'm quite looking forward to testing this. Before I do, though, I need to say a few words about the way that I review distros. I try and approach a distro review as a brand new user who is giving a new distro a spin for the very first time. So I download the ISO, I fire it up in VirtualBox, and I have a look round. I'm a great believer in honesty. A review should be about the positive and the negative points. And as many of you who will have seen my video last week will know, I will point out the negatives if I see them. I'll say what I see. And I had a comment last week that my review was pointless because it was all negative. And I'm really sorry, guys. The review will be what I find. I will try distros, and I'm sure not everyone will be great. Which brings us to this review. Initially, Ben was looking at doing a Ubuntu respin based on 1910, Ubuntu 1910, and so I give it a little bit of a trial, and I had major problems. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is going to be another negative review. Luckily, I saw his latest comments on my channel, and he said, sorry, I had a few horrible problems. I've changed everything. It's not going to be Ubuntu anymore. I've done a Unity respin. Right, okay, great. So I've downloaded that. It's 3.2 gigs, so it's not exactly lightweight. And up until this point, all I have is the ISO. So you're going to discover this with me. So let's load it up in VirtualBox and let's give it a spin. Before we actually go to VirtualBox, though, what I think I should say about this is Ben hasn't actually put this out there on SourceForge yet. It is a work in progress. He's given me a link to an ISO image on his Google Drive, and I will post that link in the information section below this video. But because it's a work in progress, I'm probably going to be a little bit kinder to it than if it was up on SourceForge. I know myself from experience that playing around with respins, it can take a little time to get right. So this is based on Ubuntu 18.04, the stable version. The previous version, which he's now got rid of, was based on 1910. Probably a good idea to stick with a stable version. Let's see what it's like. I have no preconceptions here. I'm keeping my fingers and toes crossed that this is going to blow me away. Let's give it a go. So it's been a while since I've tested Ubuntu itself, so let's see how this goes. I've set it up in UEFI mode. I've given it an 80 gig virtual hard drive, Now, I've done that because when I had a go at playing with the previous version, the Ubuntu version, the installer told me I needed at least 30 gig, because this comes pre-packaged with lots of applications, I believe. So an 80 gig virtual hard drive should give us plenty of free space. It's got 2 threads of my i5 processor. I've given it 8 gig of RAM. And let's press start and see what happens. We'll go straight into full screen mode and follow along. Right, so it's obviously picked up that it's EFI. I can see that from here. We've got Start Ubuntu Remix, start it in compatibility mode, do an OEM install, or check the integrity of the media. Well, let's just start it straight away and see what happens. Okay, a few little error messages, but you tend to get these anyway on a UEFI boot in VirtualBox. Here we have the famous purple Ubuntu screen. I'm quite pleased that Ben's decided to put Unity on it rather than stick with the GNOME desktop environment, which Ubuntu favour now. I did have Ubuntu Unity installed for a number of years, and I got to quite like it. So it's a decent desktop environment. Not much seems to be happening now, but we'll come back in a second. Okay, so that took a little while to boot, but once booted, it's gone straight to full screen. It looks like it's 1920 by 1080, but let me just see. I've clicked on the settings icon. It looks like it's still settling down because nothing's happened so far. And there we go. And let's go straight to the displays icon. And yes, it's gone straight to 1920 by 1080, which is great. Okay, so first look. The one question I would have at this stage is, where's the installer? Maybe I'm missing it. We've got Chromium here on the Unity panel. We've got the file manager, LibreOffice Writer, and a link to the software store, and a link to settings. I don't see the installer immediately unless I'm missing something. Let's open up settings again to make sure it's not in here. No, I can't see anything. Interesting. Let's go to the Unity dash and see what the software is that's pre-installed. 119 more results. Okay, so it really does come with a fair amount of applications pre-installed. And I'm clicking on Show All, and at the moment, it doesn't seem to be expanding. Oh, here we go. Right, so what have we got installed here? The standard driver helper, the appearance widget, archive manager, Audacity, backups, Blender installed by default. Interesting. Biobu terminal. Never heard of it, but okay. Let's just give that a click and see what it is. Welcome to the light, powerful text window manager, Biobu, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. To run a command as administrator, use root. Oh, right. So it's essentially a terminal. Okay. Let's go back to the applications. So, calculator, calendar, all the standard stuff. Pre-installed with Cheese, which is always a good choice, and the Chromium web browser. And Compiz Settings Manager. Right, okay, so you can get your spinny cubes, and you can also get all your flames across the desk, no doubt, and all of the rigmarole that comes with Compiz. I won't test that while I'm using the live CD. You've got Conky Manager, Deluge, installed by default, desktop sharing, a DVD CD video creator, Discord. Let's have a look. The document viewer, a file manager, Firefox installed, GDebi pre-installed, the GIMP, all good so far. Google Play Music out of the box, Gparted. What else? HTOP. Let's just have a look at HTOP out of interest. Okay, 960 megs it's showing so far, but I'm running this as a live CD, so let's not make any comments about that at this stage. What else is here? K3B, Imagination. I'm not sure what Imagination is. Kdenlive installed by default. Looks like the whole of the LibreOffice suite is here. LMMS. Lutris installed by default. So I'm not a PC gamer, but for those of you who are, that will prove useful, I'm sure. Mumble, again, not something I've used. NVIDIA X server settings, so that's already installed, and OBS Studio, as well as Oracle VirtualBox. What else have we got? The Pingu Builder. That's interesting. I believe that's an application which will allow you to do a respin of your distro and produce an ISO that you can reinstall and get everything back just as it was. It's only made for Ubuntu distros, so it's good to see that sort of thing there as default. And I also see Play on Linux there. Play on Linux is very much a front end to Wine for running Windows programs and for easy configuration. So from what I'm seeing so far, this is set up as a desktop that would be good for people like myself who make videos with OBS and Kdenlive installed, but also with Lutris and Play on Linux there. Somebody who is coming across from Windows may well find it useful for running Windows applications as well. I wonder if Steam's installed by default. We'll get down to that. Ramina, remote desktop client. Skype installed by default. Spotify installed by default. Steam, there we go. Steam is installed by default. So this is clearly going to be absolutely wonderful for gamers coming across to Linux. And Vim and VLC, Wacom tablet application. Right, it's pretty much fully loaded. I'm still just wondering, what about the installer? Let me do a search here. In the applications, nothing coming up for installer. What is the Ubuntu installer? It's Ubiquity, isn't it? No, nothing. Wouldn't be Calamaris, would it? No, nothing. Okay, so I can't see any way to install this at the moment. What I did see, however, on the Grub boot screen is an option to do an OEM install. Whether Ben just hasn't added the installer to this ISO yet or not, I don't know. But let's have a look around the live CD, and then we'll give it an OEM install and see what happens. So, change the background. Let's have a look at the wallpaper that's installed by default. There seems to be a fair few wallpapers loading now. Okay, that's quite nice. What about this? Okay, landscape views, a little bit of nature, something abstract, more rocks. What's that? That's something that's very abstract. The normal Hackman Star Wars inspired wallpaper seems to be missing from here so far. I'd quite like to see that, to be honest, Ben. I'm sorry that you haven't done that. But okay. I think I quite like that wallpaper. It's a nice desktop. It seems to be reasonably responsive, just running it from the live ISO image. What have we got up here? We've got Solar. No Logitech receiver found. I presume that's something to do with Logitech keyboards. I could be wrong. I've never seen it before. And what have we got there? Just the About computer. Okay, so I'm seeing a nice Unity desktop. I quite like the colour scheme. At the moment, though, I'd really like to get it installed to a hard drive. So let me shut this down and let's see if I've missed anything on the boot screen. So let's give this a go again. Let's launch it and bring up the boot screen. I don't think I missed an option to install it from the boot screen. In fact, no, there's nothing there. There is just an OEM install for manufacturers. So this is sort of your basic install where you install the system and on a new computer, and when it's given out to or when it's bought by a user, they get to configure such things as a username and password. So let's try this and see what happens. Okay, we've got the normal EFI boot errors with VirtualBox, but I will never blame a distro for that. That's simply to do with UEFI implementation in VirtualBox. And let's wait for this to launch our installer. Okay, so it's launched into the desktop mode as just as it did before. But again, I see no installer here. Let's go into the dash. I wonder if I click search for OEM. It takes a while to settle itself down. No. No. What a shame. It doesn't actually look like the installer is here. Okay, guys. It's a real shame, this, because up to this point, I really like the look and feel of this. I like the fact that it's fully loaded. If it would install, I think it would be a really useful distro for a whole range of people. I'm particularly impressed with the front end Play on Linux install by default. Let me just knock that off. It's a little bit unresponsive now for some reason. Not quite sure why, but if I go to Play on Linux, let's just see if it will actually launch in this live mode. It might be asking a bit too much. Do you want to help Play on Linux make a compatibility database? If you click yes, the following things will be sent to us anonymously. Well, let's just say yes. And install a program. Okay, well, I've come back to this and it's had an awful long time and it's still not refreshed. I'm not going to make any statements about this because I'm doing it on a live ISO rather than an installed system. But because I can't really go any further at this stage, I think it's just time to have a chat now. Okay, well, let's not pretend here things could have gone better. It would have been great if there was an installer there and I could have tested it properly. However, okay, the installer's been missed off. That's a relatively simple thing to fix, and I'm sure that Ben will get onto that pretty quickly. And I'd be happy to test it once it's installed. On the plus side, though, I like the theming. I'm really impressed that it actually comes fully loaded with lots of applications for people like me who do videos, for people who need to run Windows programs, also for gamers. So potentially, its potential is massive. It's not quite there yet from what I can see, and I'm sure once it's installed, Ben will continue to tweak. So as a first look at a work in progress, I think this has got some big positives, and I'll be interested to see how it progresses. Now, before I go, I mentioned around the Christmas time that I'd managed to pick up a £50 ThinkPad. This is a little X131E, which is essentially a tiny ThinkPad that was produced, I believe, for the education market. I've had one of these before. It's a bit like a brick, but that suits me because this fits very easily in a carry bag when I'm going away on work. And I'm not worried about it breaking because it is like a brick. It's an i3 processor. It came installed with 4 gig of RAM and a spinny hard drive. I've changed the RAM out and I've put 8 gig into it. I've also fitted an SSD in it, and it now flies. So the question is, guys, what do I install on this? On my last one, I had Slackware, which ran really well on it. I'm thinking Debian. I'm thinking Arch, or possibly Linux Mint, probably the Mate edition. It's got a few bumps and hurdles that have to be overcome because it's got a Broadcom wireless chip. Now, this is resolvable. It's certainly resolvable, but it does mean that after the initial install, you have to fiddle about a bit to get wireless going. So my question to you for next week is, what do you want to see me install on this? And I'll do that live next week. Okay, guys, until next week, look after yourselves.